Italiani e italiane, and to everyone watching from this new channel on YouTube. I will speak briefly just to greet all the Italians out there, outside of Italy. And I do hope that my voice is loud and clear, given the fact that in a few days I'll be leaving for Edinburgh in Scotland, where I have to give some important speeches, and in particular, a show that bears my name. But in any case, today we have a press conference. In front of me, a group of journalists, and I remind everyone that you're not wearing a microphone, unfortunately. We had to organize everything in a rush. But in any case, I hope that the people out there watching us can hear my voice loud and clear, the voice of Italy, and the voice of a party, the National Fertility Party, the party that I have the honor to represent. Now, I ask all the journalists here to be patient for a second as I give an introduction, and then we'll open the questions. And I'll be glad to answer all of your questions. I know you came from very far. The time is scarce. I think this broadcast will last 45 minutes, but in any case, I will answer your questions. I will not refrain to answer any question. As you can see, I don't have with me pen or paper or any notes, given that the true politician, that is to say, the man of action, is capable of delivering a speech and answering all sort of questions from the bottom of the heart. Sincerity, in a world full of lies, must be the driver of our political action. But that's loud and clear. Thank you very much, Bob. But that's another story. I don't know how many people will be watching this, but the recording will stay probably forever as a testimonial of a great event, those events that define history. But in any case, and I'll be answering your questions really quickly. For the people watching this for the first time, this is the first press conference in English that follows a number of press conferences given on another channel, an Italian channel, in italiano, questa lingua bellissima. And this follows also the Mussolini show, a show which is broadcast every week in Italy, where I receive phone calls for all the people in Italy and outside of Italy that are worried about the current political situation. And I must say also geopolitical situation. And it is the current path that Europe has taken that has driven me to come all the way to Scotland. As the world, and Europe in particular, is walking on the same path that led the continent to fight a disastrous war, where nation against nation in Europe fought, losing the position of Europe in this world for the advantage of the United States of America, the barbarian state led by the current president, Donald Trump. We speak about that as well. That's a speech I wanted to give you. The National Fertility Party, which is the party I have the honor to lead, and a party that will probably participate in a major election in Italy in order to throw a glimpse of light in the darkness of a political landscape which is clogged, smothered, and suffocated by the totalitarian mantle of that open sewer or open toilet, as I define it, called the European Union. But in any case, that's another topic, and we speak about that later. So I want to open the questions. If you're ready, I remind you that you do not have any microphone, so I will repeat your question. And whenever you're ready, and e con calma, mi raccomando, state calmi. So, yes, first question. Yes, the lady down there. Yes. So the question is about the show that I will perform. If you don't mind, I'll just look into the camera for a second. The show is Mussolini. It bears my name, Mussolini, or Mike, Uniform, Sierra, Sierra, Oscar, Lima, India, November, India. And I hope I spelled it right, just in case, you never know. And I will have that show in a venue, I think it's called a venue, Si Alto, which is up, non basso, alto, mi raccomando, at 17:25 from the 11th to the 24th of August. So that's where I will perform the show. And yes, next question. Yes. How long is the show? Well, the show is 60 minutes long. Attention, 60 minutes. Not 59, not 61. I think we're going to finish probably at 57, and then I'll give maybe a short speech at the end of the show, but I'm not sure about that. It just depends how tired I feel and so on and so forth. Thank you for your question. Next question. Yes. One at a time, please. No, non fate casino, per cortesia. Yes. Yes, your question. When and how I will arrive in Scotland? Well, I should arrive in Scotland tomorrow, and this is the reason why we're holding this press conference tonight. And how? I'd probably be boarding a plane. I was thinking to come at first with a dinghy boat, because I understand that had I come with a dinghy boat, there could have been the opportunity for me to have a free hotel accommodation, which is a chance I didn't want to miss, given the exorbitant price of hotels in Edinburgh. But we studied with my collaborators the situation, and arriving with a dinghy boat all the way from Rimini, which is a city on the coast of Italy, in the eastern coast, for people that don't know, would have been quite difficult. It would have implied a crossing of about 3,000 kilometers, probably 2,500 nautical miles, on this dinghy boat, passing through the coast of Sicily, then up on the western coast of Italy, bordering France, Spain, crossing the Strait of Gibraltar, then bordering north of Spain, north of France, and then crossing the Channel all the way up to Scotland. And although a free hotel accommodation was something very tempting, for a number of reasons, we decided not to come with a dinghy boat. And therefore, we're just going to take a plane. It's going to be easier. In about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, it depends on the skills of the pilot, we should be in Edinburgh. Thank you for your question. Yes, next question. Yes. Well, what kind of clothes I'll be wearing? Well, I come with my uniform, of course. I do have a set of different uniforms. I'm bringing an umbrella. I understand that in Edinburgh, at times it rains. And I must say to all the people of Scotland, you're very lucky. Because here in Italy, the heat is terrible. The sun shines continuously. Scores of people are invading the beaches. Whereas in Scotland, lucky you, the sun is clement and it does not shine too much. The air is chilly, and the rains often washes the streets of Edinburgh, which are therefore very clean. How lucky you are. And so I am so happy to come over there and share this bit of luck that you have and get away from this horrible Italian climate, those horrible beaches, and that Mediterranean Sea, which at first may look beautiful, but after you stay here for several years, it becomes boring. So I just want to feel the excitement of being in Scotland and share your fantastic weather with you. And most of all, your great food, Scottish eggs, lambs, e basta. E vabbè. In any case, thank you for your question. Yes, next question. Yes, yes, yes. No, una alla volta. Yes. Yes. All right. The question is about the current geopolitical situation in Europe and the fact that Europe is rearming. Well, thank you for your question. As you all know, Europe is rearming, and it is one of the topics I will speak about in my show. There's an old African saying that says, if you don't know where you're going, turn around and look where you came from. And it seems that the whole of Europe does not understand where this continent came from. That is to say, 2 world wars, which caused for the ex-British Empire, the complete loss of the empire, same for France, and the diminishing of the geopolitical importance of Europe. I just want to underline that from 1905 until 1914, and I speak about the First World War, all European countries were rearming. Just look at the data. And when all countries rearm, and it's not only Europe, but let us not forget China, the United States of America, and we're going to speak about the beautiful bill of Donald Trump, and other countries. Of course, Russia is currently engaged in a military operation, if not war, and Israel as well. If everybody's rearming, sooner or later, these weapons will speak by themselves. And this is the reason why I'm coming to Edinburgh to perform this show based on the history of what happened between 1939 and 1945, although the current situation is more similar to what happened in the First World War. Given the current frictions and conflicts are not ideological in nature. I'm sorry if I'm not looking at you, but rather look into the camera, but rather belong to what we can call great power politics. And so we are rearming. Great Britain is rearming. France is rearming. Italy is sort of rearming. We're not serious people. We're very sincere, which is different. And the very serious people of Europe, that is to say the Germans, are rearming. The German army has set up a base in the Baltic states. It is the intention of Chancellor Schmerz, as the Germans call him. Schmerz means pain in German. To give long-range weapons to the Ukrainian troops. And Germany wants to become the first standing army in Europe. Whenever Germany becomes the first standing army in Europe, beautiful things happen. So I'd say that 20 years from now, Great Britain and France and Italy will not have to face a Russian danger, but rather an assertive Germany, which will want, of course, its seat at the table of the great powers, given that its economy is greater than the economy of the UK and France put together. We speak about 90 million people, plus the Austrians, plus the Swiss, plus all that area of Europe, which is culturally linked to Germany, which constitutes more than a third of the current European Union. And that is the reason why my party wants to stop this madness through also the Brexit, but we speak about the Brexit later on, and we can carry on with the questions. Yes? Why am I saying the United States of America is rearming? Donald Trump. Yes. Thank you for your question. Yes. I'm listening. All right. So, what happened with Donald Trump? What we have seen in these first 6 months of Donald Trump's presidency, in Italian Donaldo Trompetta, is a complete U-turn on the promises he had made to his electorate. The so-called beautiful bill has increased the deficit spending of the federal government of the United States. We speak about 8%. It has increased the military spending, therefore America is rearming. And we cannot forget the great Minister of Defense of America, Exeth, a person who is competent in everything but defense, but that's another story. And I saw, with a mix of pleasure and terror, his commercial regarding American drones. I also have to underline the current division between Donaldo Trompetta, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk, in Italian Elonio Moscatelli. A division that reached the point where Elonio Moscatelli, that is to say Elon Musk, wants to found and set up a new political party in America, calling Donald Trump a traitor. Not to forget the fact that Donaldo Trompetta, Donald Trump, is once again rearming Ukraine. And just 3 or 4 days ago, we had an incident between Donald Trump and an important member of the Russian Federation, that is to say, Dmitry Medvedev. And I'm sorry I cannot pronounce it well, but it's too many consonants. Medvedev, which I think means big bear in Russian. So that's a story. A president that was supposed to be a president of peace, and now is becoming a president of war in an irrational way. And I'm not speaking right now about the tariffs and so on. A president which is breaking the old word that America itself set up after the end of the Second World War, without replacing it with anything but the sole use of brute force which is used in imposing the tariffs. We change continuously. One day 95%, the other day 15%. That we had the situation with China and so on and so forth, where he backtracked, winning the name of TACO, an acronym of which I do not know the meaning, although I do like tacos. And a big salute to all the people of Mexico. My name, Benito, comes from the name of a great Mexican revolutionary, Benito Juarez, and so on and so forth. The list is very long, and I don't want to bore you with the details. But that's the situation right now. It seems to me that Donald Trump is following the same steps of Joe Biden, and I'm quite sure that within few months, if not weeks, he will start speaking to his invisible friends. And this is a demonstration that who really leads the United States of America is not the president, but invisible forces. The same invisible forces that were speaking to Joe Biden as he was shaking hands with his invisible friends. And ho finito. So we can continue. Yes. 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 All right. So the question is about what happened with Dmitry Medvedev. I'm sorry, but there's too many consonants. Medvedev, let's call it Medvedev. So it was from the diplomatic point of view a total disaster for Donald Trump, as he reacted not to a communication given officially by the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, but to a mere person who has no political functional role in the Russian Federation. And this shows something about the character of Donald Trump. He wants and pretends to be a man in control, but instead is a man full of buttons. And all you need to trigger his action is to press the right button. He moved 2 nuclear submarines, and I'm going to give you a piece of news. Submarines move all the time, otherwise they sink. So even the messages that he's conveying make no sense whatsoever. I have moved 2 submarines to the proper positions. A message that doesn't mean anything at all. He gave an ultimatum to the Russian Federation, and I remind you that the 8th of August, that is to say in 48 hours, he will have to give action to this ultimatum. Because if you launch ultimatums which are not followed by actions, you become somebody like an old clown in a circus that speaks to himself but is not able to perform any longer. And said ultimatums were about secondary sanctions given to India. Now you can imagine that the United States of America finds in China its biggest peer competitor. And very intelligently, Donald Trump had this fantastic idea to sanction India, which would be its perfect ally in containing China. I leave it to yourself to judge what this situation implies. But in any case, let us not forget Medvedev. And I have a message for Dmitry Medvedev, and I hope I got his name all right. And if it's not Dmitry, Medvedev. If it's not Medvedev, Mev, it doesn't matter. Dmitry Medvedev, hai rotto le scatole. Is that clear? We're not afraid of you, especially in Britain. I'm going to meet in a couple of days Keir Starmer. And I've got a message for you, Medvedev. You have to stop. Put the bottle of vodka down on the table and stop speaking nonsense. Because Keir Starmer will not allow that. Is that clear? He's not Donald Trump. I'm talking to you, Medvedev. Do you think we are afraid? We're not afraid. You know what you are? You're just envious. You're envious of the great President Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, because President Zelensky has a villa in Italy, you don't. Because President Zelensky has an apartment in Tel Aviv, and you don't. Because President Zelensky had a villa in Crimea, and you don't. In other words, he works in real estate. Vabbè, but that's another story. In any case, you're envious. You think we're afraid? We are afraid of a thermonuclear exchange? No. You want to throw a 20 megaton bomb on London? Make it 30. That's what Keir Starmer says. You want to throw a hydrogen bomb in Birmingham? Throw it. Just do it. Let's see if you have the balls to do it. You want to throw 5 nuclear bombs on New York? Do it. I dare you, double dare you. Just don't throw a bomb in Edinburgh, because then it makes a flash of light, and it's bad for the skin, and also it's really bad for audience attendance. So please don't do that. All right? Thank you, Medvedev. All right. So anyway, so that's the message I have for Medvedev and all the people of the Russian Federation. Of course, we're working for peace. Americans are working for peace. They're good people. Just see what is happening in Israel. 25,000 Israeli soldiers are American citizens, in case you don't know. 15% of the settlers are American citizens. All the weapons used in Gaza are American weapons. And this as a testimonial to the fact that America is a good nation, and Donald Trump, sorry, I got confused, is a good person, and I hope he's going to get the Nobel Prize for what is happening in Israel, and I hope that he will carry out his project to build this fantastic ski resort in Gaza. Nobel Prize winner. It kind of reminds me of Obama. You know, when Obama got the Nobel Prize in his last year of presidency, he threw 27,000 bombs in 7 countries, and he got the Nobel Prize. So I think probably Trump wants to follow the same path, but that's another story. Anyway, so questions? Yes. Gaza, yes. Well, I thank you for your question. Now, the debate in Europe is the following regarding Gaza: whether it is a genocide or not. That's a silly debate. The question is whether what the Israelis are doing abides by what we call the international law. Let me remind you that the International Court of Justice will rule on the fact whether what is happening in Gaza is a genocide, and it has ruled on the fact that there is a genocidal intent. So the intention is there, but let me give you some data. In the current war between Russia and Ukraine, the Russians have thrown 0.17 tons of bombs per square kilometer. In the War of Vietnam fought by the Americans between 1960 and 1970, the Americans threw 14 tons of bombs per square kilometer, whereas the Israelis in this conflict have thrown so far more than 100 tons of bombs per square kilometer in an area, Gaza, which has a population density much larger than Ukraine and Vietnam. So I'll leave it to you, the judgment, whether it is a genocide or not. That's not interesting. what we can say is that the definition of a surgical strike of the Israeli army is far from precise. And there is definitely an intent of ethnic cleansing. Anyway, we have to thank the American government and especially Donald Trump, as the Americans have decided to be led in the foreign policy by a foreign state, that is to say, the state of Israel. The position of Italy and of my party with regards to this is very clear. Italy is a country which is in the Mediterranean Sea. It's a major power in the Mediterranean Sea, together with the French, well, forget the French for a second, and Turkey. Our position historically has always been as a mediator between the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. And my party proposed much earlier than President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer the recognition of a Palestinian state. And I remind you that more than 130 countries recognize Palestine as a state. And in Europe, that includes Ireland, Spain, Norway, and many others. As far as President Trump, I'm sure he will get the Nobel Prize for Peace. And with that, I think we can definitely shut all the organization of the Nobel Prize, which has reached with this Nobel Prize and other prizes a ridiculous state. It is a joke. And all I can say is that we got to move on and look to other countries. America is not the indispensable country anymore. The United States is allied with a foreign state into an operation of ethnic cleansing. The American army is contributing to this ethnic cleansing. American citizens, and I speak about the 25,000 American citizens that are in the IDF, are taking part into this crime. We do not want to call it genocide. All right, let's call it extermination. Let's call it ethnic cleansing. Let's call it a new way of entertaining those people, and I'm speaking about the Americans, that could not enjoy mass shooting in their own country, given that mass shooting, especially in schools, it's a national sport in America, which is illegal, by the way. But thanks to Netanyahu and the group of people that surround him, it's legal in Israel. So if you want to entertain yourself with a bit of mass shooting, and you live in California or Northern Carolina, or whatever it is, do go to Israel. Over there, it's legal. Just go to the West Bank, say you're a settler, then you can return to the United States and have fun. All right? Thank you. All right, sorry about that. Now, question, yes. Yeah. So I'm drinking some coffee. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you. This is Chucharin coffee. In case you don't know it, this is the official sponsor of the Mussolini Show, which is a program I broadcast on the other YouTube channel in Italian, where we receive live phone calls. Chucharin coffee, all right? And I'm a testimonial of Chucharin coffee. It's a great Italian coffee. I'm just going to take a sip because I'm thirsty. A black coffee, an intense coffee, a patriotic coffee. Chucharin, è tempo di ciucciare. It's ciuccia time. Yes, thank you. Sorry if I interrupted you. Sorry, it doesn't matter. Yes, so you were saying. Brexit. Yes, thank you. I thank you very much, and just repeat the question. The question is, what is Brexit? And it sounds like Brexit, but it's not like Brexit, and I'm going to explain that to probably the British public out there that may get confused. Now, my party, the National Fertility Party, who I remind you, all of you, is going to run for the election of a city council in Italy, probably at the beginning of the second half of 2026, but that's another story. And I'm not going to talk about that. Like I said, my party in its electoral program has, with regards to the relationship with the European Union, the idea of Brexit. What is Brexit? Well, let me speak first of all about Brexit, because of course, as I'm going to Great Britain, this topic, Brexit, is still a hot topic, and I do watch with interest sometimes the speeches given by Nigel Farage, a person who, in a certain sense, I even admire for his courage and the lead that he took in taking this bold decision. The same cannot be said of Boris Johnson. I saw his pictures lately. He looks like a tramp, let me say that. He was in Sardinia, by the way, completely drunk. And he did not settle the bill of the discotheques where he was shouting, drinking like a madman. Boris, te lo dico in italiano, all right? You pay your bills, non fare il furbo. It was in this discotheque in Sardinia, in case the British public doesn't know that, where he was showing everybody, all Italians, the kind of dance moves he learned during COVID. Because, as Boris Johnson said to the Italian press, COVID was for me a moment where I could stay alone in my own cabinet with 300 other people and experimenting new dance moves, I must say, daring moves. That in Italy we had the luck to see, in a way, but still he has to settle his bill, and the man drinks a lot. And as I understand, he's now in Taiwan, repeating the same feat that he did with Ukraine. Let me remind you, when the Russians entered the Ukrainian territory, and President Zelensky, that Donald Trump called in a moment of generosity, mediocre comedian and an unelected dictator. He went to Istanbul, Boris Johnson, and said, no, we can defeat the Russian Federation. Carry on. Don't worry. I'll be behind your back. Then he disappeared, gone, vanished. The situation is terrible for Ukraine. Would have been easier just to say, we're not going to enter NATO, but that was too difficult. Also, I understand it's a proper diction, NATO, difficult to pronounce in Ukrainian, but right now, Boris Johnson is in Taiwan, surprise, to repeat the same stunt. And I hope the Taiwanese people will refrain from giving him alcohol. And in any case, I hope that the clubs of Taipei will make sure he pays in advance. Ne sappiamo qualcosa noi in Italia. Va bene? In any case, sorry, I got lost. What was the question? Brexit. Yes, sorry about that. Yes. Anyway. So I was saying, what happened in Britain? The British decided to vote for Brexit. The idea was for Britain to leave the European Union. It was a vote for sovereignty in a way. It seems to me that you're back to square one, but that's another story. But it was a selfish vote. The same story happens in France, for example, with another political leader. His name is François Asselineau, the leader of the Frexit party. France exit. Italy, and especially my party, has a complete different idea. Because if somebody comes inside your house, starts shouting, starts giving orders, starts raising his voice, it is not you that leave the house. But you take this person by the hand gently, you open the door, and you give this person a good kick in the butt, especially if you're wearing a boot. All right? So that's the idea of Brexit, Brussels exit. It is not Italy that has to leave Europe, but it is the 40,000 European bureaucrats of the European Union that have to be sent to exile. And here's the daring idea of Brexit. Our idea is to take the 40,000 bureaucrats of the European Union, freeze them at a temperature of minus 35 degrees Celsius, enter them at a depth of 2 kilometers in the Arctic Pole inside cryo capsules, and send them to Mars, planet Mars. I am sure that there is life in Mars, and we're going to colonize the red planet, sending the first settlers, that is to say, the frozen European bureaucrats. The fact that they are frozen will help them withstand the long journey towards the red planet. And on top of that, in order to save money, because of course, Brexit is going to be very expensive, they're not going to wear a spacesuit. Time has proven that the European bureaucrats are tenacious and resilient in any situation. And therefore, the idea is to send these cryo capsules to planet Mars and open them one at a time with a European bureaucrat inside until one of them will survive. And they will survive. Actually, during the voyage towards planet Mars, we will make sure that the song "I Will Survive" will accompany them in the long journey. I will survive. First there was a time I was petrified, and so on and so forth. All right. And they may be petrified if we open the cryo capsule, but that's another story, and I don't want to digress on the scientific details of this. And I'm sure that Elon Musk will help us in the Brexit. Now, so this is the idea of the Brexit. Because once we get rid of the European bureaucrats, we will have to sit down at a table once again, France, Germany, Great Britain, I say even Russia, and invent something else. Not a federation, but a confederation. Because Europe still exists for now. And what is Europe? Europe is not a nation. Europe is a civilization united by its Greek, Roman, and Christian past, and Italy being the country of birth of the Roman Empire, and also being the seat of the Catholic Church, cannot just think about itself, but have a larger vision. And let me add something before you continue with the questions about the National Fertility Party. It is not only Brexit, but the idea of our party is to leave NATO, as France did in 1966, when led by the great Charles de Gaulle, because we think that NATO doesn't have any sense any longer with the cancellation of the Warsaw Pact and the fall of the Soviet Union. We think NATO, as it is right now, is just an instrument of the decaying American empire, an organization that opened an office in Tokyo, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, Tokyo, it's in the Pacific Ocean. It was Pacific, but then NATO arrived. So we'll have to change the name of the Pacific Ocean as well. Warmongering Ocean or something like that. I'm sure Donald Trump is going to like that, given the fact that he wanted to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico into Gulf of America. How funny. So we want to leave NATO. We want to implement the Brexit and colonize planet Mars. And also we want to start in the role of observer a relationship with the BRICS. That is to say, Brazil, China, and Russia. And I'll give you one set of data just to underline how America represents the old world. If you take a compass and you draw a circle with a radius of 3,000 kilometers, taking as a center Hong Kong, within the area you will have 60% of the world population, 70% of the manufacturing and economic capacity of the world, and almost 100% of all financial savings. Therefore, I see a difficult situation in the horizon for Europe, especially that Europe that is linked to a small group of people that have made a fortune with the European Union. A group of people who has a house in London, who has a home in Vienna, who has a home in Frankfurt, who has a home in Paris, who has a home everywhere and nowhere, and wants to decide the destiny and the future of 400 million souls. We will not allow that. So our intention is to start a discourse with the BRICS and to create a new Europe, a civilization that, like the great Charles de Gaulle said, goes from Lisbon to the Urals. This is the future of Europe. And as far as Americans are concerned, goodbye, a good riddance. Okay, sorry. Yes, what time is it? 21:49. We'll have to close pretty soon. I think I want to close at 10 o'clock sharp. So if you have some questions, yes. Why am I saying that America is the old world? Let me finish with stressing what has happened in the last 3 years, since 2022. We've discovered something that mainstream media doesn't speak about. Number one, we discovered that Russia and China have weapons which are way superior to American weapons. The Americans do not have hypersonic missiles. And all American tanks and armament, once arrived in Ukraine, proved to be very expensive and burning at the same rate, if not more, than the Russian counterparts. As an example, let me take the conflict that went on between Pakistan and India just a month ago. I don't know if you heard that, but a Chinese fighter, I forgot the name of the fighter, speaking about an airplane, I think it was JC-20 or something like that, but I'm maybe confused. All I know is that it cost $20 million, shot down a Rafale French jet, 5th generation jet, that cost $150 million. Nobody reported this, but just as an example of how superior the armaments of both China and Russia have become. And also, a new aircraft carrier was inaugurated just 2 weeks ago. And the person who designed the jets of this aircraft carrier is a Chinese person, so I cannot pronounce his name, although you speak some Chinese. Said that China must build jets as it is now building mobile phones. We have therefore entered in a new arms race. That's number one. Number two, the geniuses, the intelligentsia, the people with the PhD degrees that rule the European Union, and in particular, our Lord and Savior, Mario Draghi, that in Italy we adore and revere. We usually say that Mario Draghi is a creator of everything that is visible and invisible, of the known universe and the unknown universe. He and other people had the great idea of enacting 28,000 sanctions against Russia, thinking that the Russian economy would have collapsed. And what happened is that the Russians started to sell oil to India and China in their respective currencies. That is to say, in the Indian rupee and in the Chinese yuan, therefore breaking symbolically the dominance of the American dollar. And that is the reason why Donald Trump is now punishing all his allies with tariffs in the pathetic attempt to reindustrialize the United States of America. That's impossible for two reasons. Number one, the unemployment rate in America is 4%. So I don't know where he's going to find the workforce to do that. But number two, every 100 university graduates in America have only 7 engineers. That is to say, every 100 students, university students, and in America, university is very expensive, that get out from American universities, of these 100 students, only 7 are engineers. In Russia, the percentage is 25. In Iran, believe it or not, is 32. In Italy, is 15. What I'm saying is America does not have enough engineers. Not to speak about the level of American education and the so-called cadre of workers. So that attempt of reindustrialize through applying tariffs would be a shot in the water. It's just too late. And for the reason I have explained, that is to say, the superiority of Chinese and Russian armaments, the fact that through the sanctions, the Americans and the Europeans have created an anti-Western coalition that has decided to go its own way and is slowly dragging the majority of people in the world. And I remind you that the BRICS make now, if I'm not mistaken, 36% of the world GDP, whereas the G7, which I call G10 minus 3, India, Russia, and China, makes 27%. Dragging, as I was saying, the so-called global south towards its direction. Just think that with regards to what is happening in Israel, the Chinese government invited 14 Palestinian delegations in order to discuss a possible ceasefire. Therefore, in the eyes of the world, China is looking like a benevolent power. This is one of the successes of Donald Trump. Molto bravo, molto bene. And last but not least, the fact that Russia has directed its vision towards Asia, and I remind you that in every Russian high school, it is now mandatory to study an Asian language, whether it is Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Hindi, or so on, has created an enormous mass of land where goods and services can now travel.